Excellent. It's nice to be in Hong Kong again. At least my voice, anyway. And a few other countries as well, I imagine. So it's nice to be able to serve once again. Just because there is lockdowns and COVID and no flights, that doesn't stop a good monk from serving. So anyway, we start today with a nice guided meditation, which is a beautiful way to begin these sessions with some peace. Oh my goodness, in Norway as well. Somebody just put on the chat box, crikey. Anyone from any other planets? Anyone from Mars or Venus? No, from Poland. Goodness gracious. From United States, Poland. That's a lot of UK, Canada. Goodness gracious. Okay, Bangkok as well, Malaysia. Okay, enough. We realize the whole world is covered. So thank you so much. Germany, Indonesia. Okay, marvelous. So anyway, where we really are from is like inside our hearts and minds. That is the best abode. And Singapore as well. So where we actually go inside is if we are boundless. We don't belong to a country. We don't belong to the physical world. We go inside our heart, inside our mind, where deep peace, stillness, and the commonality of having a human mind can be felt, can be calmed, and can be enjoyed. Also Sri Lanka as well. Goodness. Is anyone from Australia other than me? Anyway, we can actually begin now. So if you'd like to close your eyes, and as your eyes are closed, as usual, I ask people just to come into this moment. I'm not quite sure where you are in this world, but whatever name it has, it's always called here, Here. So come into this here and this now. And we begin with our body. You may have been having a very busy day, like I have. It may be cold, it may be hot. It's really warm in Perth, Australia this evening. But it doesn't matter. We come inside our body and we ask our body, we check in with our body. So you ask your body, how are you, body? To be able to do that, it's called mindfulness. Just asking a question. Body, how do you feel? I get an answer. And that answer is the information, the data, by which I can find out if I'm in a good position for meditation. And actually, I'm not. So I'm going to adjust my position. I'm not all that used to sitting on a chair to meditate, but it's the only way we can do this for a conference. And we get used to it. So how are your legs now? Be aware of any feelings and sensations in your legs, especially to make sure that your legs are comfortable. How do they feel? And when you focus for a few minutes on your legs, just to feel them, to sense whether they're in a good position, if you come across with the answer that your legs need to be adjusted, please adjust them. Move them. It could be a mistake and you were better where you started from. If that's the case, then just go back to where you began. But what we're doing here, we're developing at the beginning of a meditation the sensitivity of awareness, of mindfulness, but now focused just on that one part of your body called the legs, for the purpose of getting some comfort. Sometimes people find it hard to sit in meditation for long periods. It's just because they don't spend enough time and attention just looking after their body, especially at the beginning of the meditation. And once you feel your legs are comfortable, adjust them this way, adjust them that way, put your feet further out from the chair or tuck them further in, move them apart, move your knees closer together or move your knees further apart. Find out the best position for yourself. And once your legs are comfortable, then check your butt. My butt sitting on this office chair does need adjusting. I'm going to do that now. When I'm working, my body needs one posture. When I meditate, it needs another posture. Call it like a stronger posture. I prefer sitting up. That's better. My butt feels good. My legs feel good. And now I'm aware of my back. Many people do get back problems. So I stretch my back. Just like, feeling, just stretching. It takes a bit of effort to stretch the back. And then once it's nicely stretched, and I let go. And my body, or especially my back, goes back to a position where it's more comfortable than when I began. So I've learned how to get my back in a really good position when I start to meditate. And my awareness, what I'm looking at, what I'm mindful of, is just my back right now. Focusing on that area of my body to make sure everything is okay. And if there's some part of my body which does need to be adjusting, of course I will adjust. That's called kindness. Kindness to my own body. And then I look at the front of my body. The front of the body is all these organs. There's, the intestines and colon and the stomach and the lungs and the heart. And there's so much important engine compartments on my body. And I just feel them. I don't deliberately feel every part of my chest. If I find any part which is irritating, aching, heavy, or imbalanced, I would always stop there. I don't try and figure out exactly what it feels like. You just know that it needs a little bit of relaxation, a bit of comfort. So I zoom in on that area of my body. Go right into it and relax it, care for it. Sometimes it's like, say, monks in the monastery where I live. Sometimes I make sure that every now and again I just say, how are you? Care for them, notice them. And then they relax. If I ignore them or they feel they're being ignored, of course there'll be a tension there. It's like parts of my body, just checking out on them. Look, I'm here. If anything you need, let me know. And that kindness, that respect of parts of my body makes those parts of the body relax so deeply. I feel that relaxation. Even in my chest, I can feel even the skin on my chest because it's hot and warm, and I was born in a cold country. You can feel that the skin is a little bit over hot. So just be kind to it. So that's the best we can do. That just concern, that kindness, relaxes even my skin. I go up to my shoulders. People have shoulder aches. I've had shoulder aches before. I want to make sure that those shoulders are really nicely relaxed and at ease. So I just zoom in on that part of my body called shoulders. And I know that if I tighten them up, or if I just pull those muscles apart, stretching them, or squash them with something, then of course they will get aches and pains later on. So I keep those muscles really loose. I can feel them loosening. I can feel just those muscles relaxing. And I stay with that part of the body relaxing my shoulders until I know they're about as relaxed as they can be. And I move down my arms to the elbows. Some of you may have problems with your elbows or your wrists or other parts of the body which I just gloss over. If you do have aches and pains there, just pause there, stop there. Don't try and cure anything, care for it. Just giving huge amounts of loving kindness and time, attention to the part of your own body which really needs some kindness. This is what I learned even as a child. And when your mother was stroking an area of your body which was injured or bruised, the pain would lessen. Mother's love, the kindness, would relax things. The kindness which I'm giving now to my own body is relaxing my own body. Things start to become really at ease. I go past my wrists to my hands, making sure all my fingers are in a good position. I don't know what's a good position. I ask my fingers in my hand, are you happy there? And they tell me what the best position is for them, how comfortable they feel. You see, I'm not controlling my body. I'm being kind to it. Awareness and kindness, what I called kindfulness. I'm kindful even to my hands until they get so at peace. I know I can just move away from them and go up to my neck. For some reason this evening there's a little bit of an irritation in my throat. Could be usually allergies, something flowering in the forest. I can feel a little tickle in that throat, so I just go right to it. Not trying to get rid of it, but just to care for it. I'm learning how to relax my own throat. And for those of you who don't have an irritation inside your throat, you can get neck aches if your head is too far forward or too far back, too far to the left or to the right. So I always move my head just to make sure I can find the best balance for it, where the neck feels comfortable with my head on top. And then I go out to my head. And this is where I focus on the feelings of the muscles around the eyes, around the mouth, around the nose and forehead, the muscles of the face. And of course, the way those muscles are positioned will tell everybody whether you're tense, worried, tired, happy. That's where they read your emotions by the muscle positions on your face. And by getting to know those muscle positions, you can learn how to relax your emotional world. So I'm relaxing my eyes now. I can feel those muscles. And by trial and error over many years, I've learned how to allow them to relax. So they're still closed. And the feeling around those eyes is of ease and comfort. Same around the mouth and the nose and the forehead. Everything just relaxing to the max. When my face is relaxed and with it many of the emotions, then I take a look at my whole body, all joined together, one unit. It's this body, relaxed to the max. If I see anything, see something in my intestines, today's lunch hasn't totally digested yet, so still feel a little bit of irritation there. Just kind to it. It stops bothering me. So my whole body gets relaxed. And then I notice the delight of relaxation. There's a pleasure, a joy of a body which is so at ease. And I'm sure that each one of you is far more at ease than when you started. It feels good. There's a pleasure to meditation. It's important to learn, if you say like train, how to recognize the joy of a relaxed body and later on a relaxed mind. Right now I'm just enjoying the relaxed body. It feels great. At ease. Sitting here. Not doing anything. Just relaxing to the max. And then when it's the right time for you, then we go deeper into our mind, into what I keep on calling the peace-ometer. How peaceful are you right now? I'm talking about your emotional world, your mind. And for many people, to make it easier to understand how peaceful you are right now, give it a number from 1 to 10. 10 is agitated, 1 is really peaceful. Gets you to know what peace is. No, it changes. It goes up, goes down. But why? What calms your mind down? Gives it more sense of peace. And what does that peace feel like? What agitates, disturbs your mind? What does that disturbance feel like? Of course, you soon discover that peace is very delightful. It's freedom, it's contentment, it's being at ease. It's like finishing a hard day's work and doing absolutely nothing. And enjoying the results of doing nothing. Being at peace. And of course, most important part of doing nothing is letting go of the past and the future. We come back to the past later on. We have to do some planning for the future later on, but right now, in meditation time, no past, no future. Just this incredible moment called now. This moment has never happened before. It's unique. And all the past we can let go of. This present moment can be independent of the past. Your future now is where your future is being made. So people really wander off into the future because they're concerned about it. If you really are concerned about your future, then come into this moment where you can actually create some peace and health and energy. Now, it's like you're relaxing your mind. It's like you relax your body. You relax your mind into this present moment. And you can hear that spaces between my words are getting longer. There's nothing much for me to say. There's nothing much for you to think. We become more aware of the beautiful silence of the mind. There's no need to try and describe this in words. Words are never good enough. No need to try and work out what it means. Leave that till later. Give yourself permission to be silent. No need to do anything. Just be. No need to go anywhere. Stay here in this moment and let this moment be your teacher. Getting close to the end of the meditation now. How do you feel? What's it like inside? How peaceful are you? And how delightful, pleasurable is peace? And what causes peace of mind? Hopefully you can see when you stop doing things. Allow the mind to be still. It slows down, becomes peaceful and alive. And start to move out into your body. How does your body feel right now? When I look at my body after a nice meditation, body feels so relaxed, so at ease. More so than when I just left it alone to go into the peaceometer. You can feel just how healthy this is. Now it's the end of the meditation period. So please now open your eyes, smile, and then come out from the meditation.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you for giving the opportunity.
Yeah, I want to apologize to everyone that we're having some spammers issues. So yeah, we try our best to remove them. Anyway, so welcome everyone to this Vaccine for the Heart free evening online mini retreat. I want to give everyone some reminders first. So let me pick up my script now. So I want to welcome everyone to this wonderful evening. Some reminders that so there is the link for the Q&A form in the Zoom chat box and the Facebook live post if you want to ask Ajahn a question. And our co-host Jean is going to post the link in the chat box again. And the other thing is, if you are on Zoom for any inquiries, please direct those to Jean, my co-host here. And if you are on Facebook, please comment in the live video post. So I want to give you a short intro of Ajahn Brahm. And for those of you who know about Ajahn Brahm already, feel free to enter into a jhana now. And for those of you who don't know about Ajahn Brahm, Ajahn was born in London and trained as a theoretical physicist at the University of Cambridge. He is currently the abbot of Bodhiana Monastery in Sabinane in Western Australia. He is a disciple of the late Ajahn Chah, the eminent Thai forest monk regarded by many as a meditation master. So enough of really talking. Now is the show time. Please welcome Ajahn Brahm.
Yay! Nice to nice to be able to serve. And again, I miss going to Hong Kong, but at least I can see many of you. And it's wonderful that I can be able to serve. But the title of these talks, A Vaccine for the Heart, it's obviously recognizing the problems which COVID has given our world. And not just COVID, other political problems which many countries in the world are facing. And life is difficult. And sometimes we always try and find like a solution to those difficulties in life. Where it's like some sort of vaccination or some sort of way of some drugs or some exercises or some quarantine or some ways of dealing with the difficulties in politics, with the power balances between those who have power and those who don't, and for the benefit and happiness of everybody. And sometimes it's a difficult thing. And the idea of having a vaccine, just a couple of shots and you're free. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing if we could develop a pill? Many, many years ago, I remember when I was still a lay person, and it was some monk who came along and said, yes, I'm going to invent an enlightenment pill. So instead of having to listen to all these talks, study, and just meditate and keep precepts and all of that, just take an enlightenment pill. There's one enlightenment pill and you're free from all of the poisons of the world. Oh, if it was only that easy. And it's the same even with our vaccines as well. It's wonderful that we have really good vaccines and people are getting inoculated already. Just to let you know, I haven't been inoculated yet because I'm over here in Australia. If I was 6 months older, then I would get inoculation, the anti-COVID thing. But I'm not 70 yet, so I just fall underneath the line of who gets the first vaccinations in Australia. But it will come later on. And anyway, I'm in, pretty good health. So I'm not at all concerned about vaccinations. But what I am concerned about is just people just realizing vaccinations is not just the only thing we should be concerned with. It's just what we do with those vaccinations, what we add to it. But sometimes we always hope and just one or two magic bullets, magic jabs, magic people, and then all our problems will be solved in this world. Would that be a good thing? We'd like to think, oh yes, if all my problems in life were solved, then I could be happy and live happy ever after. But that's not the meaning of this world. This meaning of this world will always give you problems and difficulties to face. Just like when you go to a school or university, you'll always be pushed to learn something a little bit harder, to go a little bit faster, to try something you've never done before. This world doesn't allow you, to go into comfort to the point that you don't do anything anymore. Unless, of course, you get into becoming an enlightened person. But nevertheless, there's so much learning we have to do. And often it's the unexpected difficulties of life. Those are where we learn the most. So instead of thinking, oh, something must have gone wrong, oh, this is difficult, can we not make a sort of a political system or a government system or a health system so these things never happen again? And of course, you can't do that. There will be other pandemics, other difficulties in your life, other sicknesses, other disappointments. That's called the first noble truth of Buddhism. Life is suffering. But instead of just calling it suffering, you can call it life is a challenge. It challenges us because if you can find the answer, and the answer isn't in COVID jabs, if you find the answer to the problem of suffering, then you're find a great, great freedom. And a lot of times that the difficulties, uncertainties of life, they do have a meaning. And so often in life, they challenge. They challenge me, they challenge others to actually to see a different way of looking at this world. Not just changing the physical part of this world. We do our best to make sure there's enough food to eat, enough freedoms to enjoy, and enough times we can have some peace and happiness in our life, and times that we can just pursue our religious or spiritual paths, which should never really be offending or making difficulties for others. But we have enough of those freedoms and also enough of the health to work with those freedoms. But in part of my life, especially those early years, some of the freedoms weren't there as a monk. And some of the difficulties and dangers weren't there. The food was not that good. The medicine was just non-existent. So it was a very challenging time when you get sick as a monk and there's no medicines. I'm really sick. One of those stories which, I've said many times, but sometimes I do repeat these anecdotes, these stories, because they do have an amazing power to teach Dhamma, truths, which when you understand, take away a lot of suffering from human beings. And that was a time when I got scrub typhus as a young monk in Thailand. And scrub typhus has almost identical symptoms to typhoid. So it's a very debilitating disease, fever, just wipes all your energy out. I mean, really big time, wiping out energy. I remember just laying on the bed after quite a few days of fever, and to be able to get to the toilet at the end of the ward with about 6 or 7 monks on each side, about a dozen, 14 or something in all. There's no one to help you. We didn't have this sort of support which we have in modern hospitals. I still remember, I don't know how I survived in these places, but I do remember the first night, you had a fever, you had a drip in your arm, you felt terrible. And then there was a nurse, a male nurse at the head of the ward. And then at 6 p.m., he disappeared. 7 p.m., the night nurse hadn't come. 8 p.m., there's no night nurse. And I managed to ask the monk in the next bed to me, said, should we tell someone the night nurse hasn't arrived? He said, what are you talking about? There is no night nurse. This is a basic hospital. And that time in a third world country, in a poor part of the third world country, there's no night nurse. If anything happens during the night time, just bad, not luck, as I would say, bad karma, unfortunate karma. So it's very scary stuff. But I always remember getting more and more weak. And to the point that just to go to the toilet, it was an expedition like climbing Mount Everest, holding on to the end of the beds, moving from one bed to another, just be able to get to the squat toilet at the end of the ward. Lucky monks were just right next to that toilet. I was one of the furthest beds away. But anyway, I just do remember just one day, 3 or 4 weeks, I was suffering from fever. It was 3 or 4 weeks. And then, because they gave me some type of vaccination every day, twice a day. And I have to indulge in this story because it was really, I was traumatized by this one female nurse would come in the morning and in the afternoon. There was nurses during the daytime, but not at nighttime, to inject me with a cocktail of antibiotics. They're the wrong antibiotics because they didn't realize what the fever was. It was scrub typhus. They thought there was no scrub typhus in that part of Thailand because all the locals had developed immunity. But the Westerners who came there, we got it. So anyway, she would come and she wouldn't inject me. She would stab me in the bottom twice a day, and that hurt. And of course, it bruised my butt. So it was just like going to the headmaster or something, for being naughty. But this was from this nun. It's not nun, it's this nurse. And I remember at the time I wasn't sort of, that advanced in my meditation. I always remember just thinking of her when I did my loving kindness. May all beings be happy and well, the chant, but I just could not do it to her. May all beings, except that nurse, who caused me so much pain. But anyway, then after a while, because I had some training and I was a monk, I decided one day to meditate. And the amazing thing was, I didn't realize it this time, I was just experimenting, trying this and trying that. The amazing thing was that even so incredibly weak, and probably in a fever as well, you could lay down on the bed, and no way could I sit up, just way too weak. Lay down there and close your eyes and go into this incredibly deep meditation. Then blissing out, having all this mental joy and happiness inside the mind. I don't know how long, but it wasn't sort of 5 minutes, maybe a couple of hours. And coming out afterwards, feeling great. And I'm pretty sure, although I wasn't really alert enough, understood enough at the time, I'm pretty sure that's when the fever and the disease broke, because they weren't given the right antibiotics, because they didn't know what it was. It's only a few years later they found out that this disease, which most of us got, was called scrub typhus. Caused by a little mite in the forest. She sat meditation under the tree, and this little mite would sort of bite you. It was only a small little prick, but they were the ones who had the bacteria, whatever it was. But I just always remember that what really cured me was not the vaccinations. It was the power of the mind. And I always, from that time before and afterwards, always realized just the power of the positive attitude, the power of focusing the mind, the power of kindfulness. So what an amazing force that is. And why on earth don't more people develop that, use it for their happiness and well-being? And if they can do that, it's a wonderful just how you can get some immunity. Of course, doctors don't understand this. So, I will have to take those jabs or whenever I'm able to, so I can do things like travel to Hong Kong. But until that time, I know just how to deal with sickness, just by learning how to make the mind so peaceful and powerful. Go deeply in. But that's for the meditation parts. The other parts of vaccination for the heart or for the mind is just learning a sort of a good attitude to what happens in life. And of course, we all know that when we think too much and we worry too much, and that is what really tires our mind out, our brain out so much, and it tires our body out so much. People think too much. And when there is political problems, or there is pandemics, environmental problems, of course, we think enormously way too much. But these are important matters in this world. How can we stop thinking about these things? And strangely enough, when I was coming out of the meditation, I remember this story. And it's an old story of mine. I haven't said it for years, but it's a powerful one. And it's not from a Buddhist sutta. But, it was powerful and meaningful enough. A modern day sort of anecdote. And this was told to me when I was a school teacher by a teacher who'd been in the Second World War. He was the head of English at this school, So he was about to retire. He was getting old, but he was volunteered to join the British Army during the Second World War. And he was sent to Burma to fight. And he wasn't an aggressive man, but just everybody had to do that. But what he told me was the time when he was on patrol in the jungle somewhere in Burma, and just with a few other soldiers. And that was when he thought he was going to die. Certainly he had to die, he thought, because the 6 or 7 soldiers had unfortunately, by accident, just wandered into the center of a huge number of Japanese troops that war together. I've got many wonderful Japanese friends now. It's just wartime, and I don't know why people have to do these things, but at least we can be friends afterwards. So anyway, he wandered into the middle of this huge number of Japanese troops because the scout came back and told them that they were completely surrounded. They were outnumbered, heavily outnumbered. There was no escape. And he thought this was his end. He's going to die. This was war in a foreign country for him, so far away from the tea shops of where he lived. And many people tell me this, that when you're in such danger, that sometimes you don't know who's going to be the hero and who is going to be the coward. No one really knows that. But anyway, he actually decided to be the hero. He's not a big guy, but he thought it was the appropriate thing to do, to serve his country. If he's going to die, he will die fighting. He reminded me of one of my friends who was a monk, and he was in the Vietnam War. He was piloting helicopters, and he actually got shot down in Vietnam during that war. And he wasn't injured, but the helicopter was shot down, and he thought he would be the hero. And those little glass or perspex bubbles which are over the top of where the pilot and co-pilot sit. He grabbed a machine gun and he jumped up on top of that bubble over the pilot's seat, saying, "Come and get me, come and get me." And he fell through the plastic. And this moment of like being some John Wayne Superman just was totally destroyed. I think his co-pilot burst out laughing because it was a ridiculous thing. He was trying to be a hero, but it was too heavy for the plastic to support him. He fell right the way through. He didn't injure himself, thank goodness. And somebody actually, another pilot, noticed them and they rescued him in plenty of time. But sometimes trying to be a hero, be a bit wise first of all. Have a little think first of all what you're doing, because real life is not like life on the movies. Anyway, so back to this guy over in Burma. That this fellow, he wanted to find his way out. Who knows? Maybe someone might make it, but at least you're trying. But the captain said no. He said, "No, we won't fight." Instead, he said, "This is the captain of a group of British soldiers." The captain said, "We'll all sit down and have a cup of tea." The British Army have a cup of tea when you're about to die. But orders are orders, especially in war. They had no choice. He thought this was the craziest thing he'd ever done in his life. There are many times when we do things we think is totally crazy, but we find out there's a lot of wisdom in what we're doing. That captain had been in the army a long time, and he had a bit of nous, insight, wisdom, whatever you wish to call it. So they all sat down, thinking this was the last cup of tea they'll ever have in their life, even if they managed to have the time to drink that. And in those few minutes, the scout came back and told this small group of soldiers, the enemy has moved. There's a way through. Put everything away quickly and silently. And each one of those soldiers crawled very carefully through the gap in the surrounding forces. And there was no injuries and no losses at all. They all escaped. And they told me that story, and thank you for telling me that story. It's a great Buddhist story. It's a great life story. He said it saved his life many times. The idea you're in a big problems, a lot of turmoil, a lot of danger. It's like you've got enemies behind you, enemies in front of you, enemies to the left, to the right, above and below, and you don't know what to do. There seems to be no escape. And when there's nothing to do nothing. That's one of those options which people just keep forgetting. There's nothing to do nothing. Be still. And what's happening is you are conserving your energies, allowing so those energies to increase, biding your time. So when it is the time to act, then you can give it everything you've got and escape. Because situations always change. There's one thing which, we can guarantee. Buddhism which always guarantees anicca, always impermanent. The life is in flux, things do change. You know that's going to happen. So when there's nothing to do, you sit as still as you can, not worrying, not thinking too much, not planning, because when there is something to do, usually very unexpected, then you can give it everything you've got. And that's how people escape many of the difficulties of life. And it also means that we learn so much about the difficulties of life and all the expectations which we have. All the expectations we have, most of them don't come true. We find out other things come true instead. So when we're expecting something, we're looking at, say, someone knocking on the front door, you find they're actually knocking in the back door. So you can answer the back door. When you feel there's a problem over here, you haven't got enough wisdom to find out what is the real problem. I know that sometimes, this is supposed to be a talk for Biff in Hong Kong, but already you let me know that people are watching this from so many other countries of the world. So you may have heard me tell this one the last time I did an international talk with someone. That was the story of a person who went to see the doctor. It's so hard being a doctor because, what is wrong with the person? They say, I'm sick. Yeah, but what type of sickness? They've got a fever. That could be anything. Oh, well, it hurts. That could be anything. What type of pain? I don't know. It hurts. So it's very difficult for when people describe their symptoms to actually understand what it really is. So anyway, this person went to see the doctor and said, well, what's wrong? He said, it hurts all over my body. What do you mean it hurts all over your body? Give me some more information. And the gentleman said, well, when I touch my forehead, it hurts. I touch my nose, it hurts. I touch my ears and it hurts. I touch my chin and it hurts. I touch my chest and it hurts. I touch my belly, my elbows, my knees and it hurts. And the doctor said, I know your problem. You have a broken finger. I don't even heard me tell that story before. But I love that story because it shows that instead of thinking, oh, this hurts, that hurts, whatever, it's the finger which is hurting. If everyone thinks that, oh, life is difficult. Is life difficult, or is the thing which feels life the problem? How we experience our world, is that the problem? And I think a lot of times it's how we experience the world. That is what causes the problem. We do expect so much. I know that so often my monks over here in Australia get a bit fed up with me sometimes when I said, oh, when I was a young monk, we didn't have computers, we didn't have medicine, we didn't have all this fine food, we didn't have mattresses to sleep on. I feel sorry for those monks. But anyway, it's not sort of sleeping on the floor, not having good food. That wasn't the problem. Never is. It's just the attitude one has towards that. As the Buddha said, there is like the two darts. Sometimes they translate as two thorns, which cause suffering in a human being. One of those darts is a physical dart. The pain, the heat. And so it's quite hot for me here this is my little office, by the way, next to my cave. This is where I do my walk, and the door behind me, that's the door into the toilet and shower. And this is where I have a computer so I can do little talks to everybody. So anyway, that when sort of you are even doing anything, you'll always get some soreness, heat, cold, getting old. Say getting old now. I can't say that anymore. You know what happens? I was saying that to monks in my monastery. I was saying, I'm getting old now. It's my 70th birthday in August. And so I'm getting old. You know that it's really kind, compassionate monks. Most of them I ordained and taught and let them grow up. And people like Ajahn Brahm, a great monk. And they said, Ajahn Brahm, you are not getting old. I was really touched by that. They said, I'm not getting old. I thought, oh, you're so kind. And then they said, you're not getting old, Ajahn Brahm. You're already old. You've got there already. And I said, thank you very much. But anyway, that all those things which you have when you get older, you know what happens when you get older? Yeah, when you get older, your eyes, you need some glasses to be able to see. You can't hear as well as you did when you were young. Your legs are just not so strong. Your arms, sometimes people's arms shake. So the whole body starts to get weaker. You can't remember things. But as you get older, there's always one part of your body which gets stronger as you get old. That's this, the mouth. Old people can really talk a long time, as you find out, because I'm always ready to give another talk, because my mouth is still incredible. It's actually fitter than it was before. But anyway, those two thorns or darts, physical, you can't do much about that. You get old, you hit yourself, you get a disease like a COVID, and you do get sort of fevers, you do feel sort of sickly, and you have to lay down a bit more. There's all these things which you have to admit. This is a physical problem. It's part of having a body. But the other dart is your emotional response to what happens. And that is the area where, as a Buddhist monk, you really focus, you learn, you investigate, you discover these amazing results when you take out that mental thought. You change your attitude to physical discomforts, change the attitude to pain, aches, old age, weakness, or whatever. And when you change the attitude problem, now that is a powerful vaccine. It's not physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's how the mind responds. And there's so many times that, teaching in Hong Kong, and just for those of you who come over to Perth and learn retreats, It's one of the first things which I say. There's nothing wrong with being sick. Sometimes people overreact when they get sick. I've got a headache. Maybe it's not just a headache. Maybe it's cancer. Maybe it's blah, blah, blah. And because you worry so much, of course, you give it more opportunity to turn into a bad disease. It's amazing just how much worry is counterproductive. Even little things like being afraid of mosquitoes, which I certainly was when I was in Thailand. There was malaria there. These days, there's extra dengue fever, and there's hundreds of mosquitoes biting you. But then later on, I was a very lucky monk. You'd sit with many mosquitoes around you, but then you could make your mind so peaceful. You go inside the body and into your mind, and you wouldn't feel the mosquitoes biting you. Couldn't feel the body when you were meditating. There's no mosquito repellent, there's no mosquito coils, there's no mosquito nets in those days. You just sat there and was bitten. That's what I thought. Just so I went deep inside when you were meditating. And when you came out afterwards, I was, wow, this was great, because I looked at my skin and there was no mosquito bites on it, because they left little bumps afterwards on your skin. I looked at my, there was nothing there. And I thought, wow, this meditation is more powerful than I thought. And I really imagined that when I really meditated deeply, it was like a force field around me, like some Superman or something. Not Superman, but super monk. There actually, people did actually show me like a cartoon in the Thai newspapers at the time, super monk. And super monk would be flying through the air in Thailand, saving damsels in distress, and stopping bank robbers, and doing all these amazing things, which the Superman, which I used to see in the comics before I became a monk, would do. But the one different thing with Superman in these Thai cartoons, at least Superman in Thailand, was a Buddhist. So when he would stop people doing terrible, terrible things, he wouldn't send them to jail. He wouldn't kill them. He would forgive them. So, just, I know you tried to destroy the world, but just don't do that again. And you forgive them and give them the 5 precepts usually. And that was the end of the villain. Can I understand why that didn't really go down so well in Hollywood? There's no sex, there's no violence, just forgiveness. That was powerful. But anyway, I always thought that when I was meditating and just the mosquitoes weren't biting me, I thought I got a force field around me. And of course, that wasn't really true. Later on, somebody showed me these articles and soon found out why I wasn't being bitten by mosquitoes. And that was because I was calm. And the articles said that most mosquitoes, they're attracted to the carbon dioxide, which is secreted from all the pores of your skin when you metabolize the oxygen. But when you get very, very peaceful, you're not worrying about anything, really still, you're hardly metabolizing at all. You're still breathing, but just tiny amounts of oxygen. You don't really need very much, because you're really just such a low metabolism in deep meditation. And that's why the mosquitoes couldn't find me. And so that's why they couldn't bite me. They basically didn't know I was there. Nothing to attract them. So it was wonderful that the more you worry about mosquitoes, the more they'll bite you. The less you worry about them, because your mind is more peaceful, the less you metabolize, the less likely it is you'll get a bite. And so really worried and swashing them around and just moving, get away, mosquito, get away, get away. You're actually telling them, here I am, come. And I always think that so many parts of life when we worry about what's going to happen, we make it more likely it does happen. So I know many people, they have their partners in life, their husbands, their wives. So they only have one. If they're Buddhists and members of BIF, they only have one wife or one husband, but you know what I mean, it's just English language. That they always worry about their partner. Especially they worry, he's coming home late from work. Does that mean he's got some mistress somewhere? That she, is not so kind to me. Does that mean that she doesn't love me anymore? The more we worry, the more we doubt our partner, the more that relationship starts to wither. So whatever we worry about, we tend to make happen, or at least make more likely to happen. It's one of the reasons why that worrying, the emotional response we have to things like COVID, political disturbance, or whatever, the more we worry, the more likely it is that the things we worry about will occur. This is one of the reasons why to learn just how to put that worry aside. You don't know what the future is going to happen, but to make goodness, kindness, harmony, peace, good things happen in the world. Don't worry so much. Make peace, be kind, be gentle more often. And then when we change our attitude towards life, when you get sick, it's part of life. Sickness, the symptoms of sickness, that's the body just trying to heal itself. Fever is just trying to burn off the bacteria or the viruses. And just inflammation is just trying to protect the wounds which the inflammation forms around. Feeling tired means the body says, I want to rest. That's been the way I've looked after my body all these years. If I possibly can, sometimes in the most weird parts of the day, I had a good sleep at night, and maybe just in the morning or the afternoon, I'm meditating. I'm sensitive to the body. I ask my body, how are you? And sometimes my body says, Ajahn Brahm, I need to have an extra half an hour sleep. Weird stuff. Not in words, but you can feel it. And I trust my body so much, I'm aware of it so much, that if that's the case, and I just go into my cave and lay down. And I know it was the right thing because you hit the pillow and you're out almost immediately. And then half an hour later, an hour later, you open your eyes and you feel $1 million and you feel great. What it is my body is telling me that there's some sickness there and it needs to be healed. And that's one of the wonderful ways of doing it. And I trust my body. It's not an indulgence, because if it's an indulgence, you lay down, you can't go to sleep at all. It's just you got the wrong message from your body. But you care for your body, you learn from it, listen to it, which means your emotional response to sickness is much wiser. If the sickness, doesn't go straight away, you're getting old, things are just not going the best for your body. Even so, that's just part of life as well. And you learn that this body does not belong to you. It belongs to nature. So you can't control this body that much. You don't know how many years you're going to live, but sometimes it's due to karma. Sometimes young people pass away, sometimes middle-aged, old people pass away. And can't do much about that, except to use those as great learning experiences. The nice thing about Buddhism that just if a young person dies, it's not the end of the world because they get reborn again afterwards. So it's not just one life. And to have that, also the idea of just many, many lives. So this one life you're in is not the be-all and end-all of life. The world is much greater than your life. You have many of them. It'd be wonderful if you can get deep enough in meditation so you can recall your past lives, to prove it to yourself. But of course, and that's true, that's what happens. That I still am a scientist. And it's obvious to me that the evidence is so strong that there is such a thing as many, 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 many lives. What a wonderful thing that is for a time of things like COVID, time of political disturbance, a time of disappointment in your life, in your family, or whatever, because it's all part of the course of your life, where you can grow, you can learn, know what kindness is. Just to make teaching simpler, I often used to say that why is it that some people are poor? How better to learn generosity than to know what hunger feels like? I don't know if any of you have not eaten for a few days. They're really hungry. What does that feel like? If you've never had that experience, there's something inside which you don't know why you should be generous. Well, they can get food from somewhere. They should be a bit more proactive. They made the wrong choices in their life. It's their fault. You make all sorts of excuses. But hunger is also an emotional problem, not an intellectual one. If you pass someone who's really hungry, you can see it in their eyes, you recognize it. Of course you will feed them, give them something. It's the same with everything else with compassion and kindness. If you've done something, you regret it, you shouldn't have done it. Because you're a human being, you make mistakes. But if the person you love and care for doesn't forgive you, how does that feel? Because really just, I'm sorry, please accept my forgiveness. Please, I didn't mean to do it, please. And they won't. Now you learn from that experience, of that pain, that suffering, how important it is to forgive others when they hurt you. Because you've hurt them and they won't forgive you back. There's a couple who been coming to this monastery for such a long time now. But when they came and saw me once, because she was doing some washing, she found out in his coat pocket there was a ticket from the massage parlor, prostitutes. He was seeing a prostitute. And of course, that was, wow, she was so upset that marriage was on the rocks. She wanted to divorce him. But good on them, they came to see me first of all. And I just, he was so apologetic. He only did it once. He didn't know why he did it. He still loved her. And so it took a lot of my time, I must admit. It was worth it. Because afterwards, he bowed to the Buddha, he bowed to me, and he promised he would never, ever do that again. And so he had to do probation for 1 year. I mean, not in the prison system or whatever, with his wife. He had to show his mobile phone to her and just all the passwords and everything which he spent so she could check him up for 1 year, 12 months. And of course he did that. And he was pure, clean slate. He really did feel that remorse. He didn't want that marriage to end. And now they're such a happy couple together. It was worth forgiving him. To see just how he'd made a big mistake. She forgave him. And now, wonderful couple together, relying upon each other. I always remind him just what a wonderful wife you have there. Not many women would do that. Well done. Just look after her and don't just push her any further. That's almost destroyed that relationship. But anyway, little things like that, just to show that no matter what happens, you feel the importance of forgiveness and trust, and you don't want to hurt another person. Little by little, that inoculates your heart. The wisdom, the insights, understanding. So people can let go of so much suffering, not just COVID, not just being confined, but just the way you look at these things. So you can have a much more peaceful life, and a happier life. So there is just got a couple of minutes over 45 minutes. And I realize I'm going to be talking again tomorrow and the next day. And also that is the time for Q&A, questions and answers. I hope you enjoyed what you've heard so far. And now we have the questions and answers. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Ajahn, can we have a toilet break?
Toilet break. When I was a young monk, we did that. Of course you can. 5-minute toilet break or 10 minutes. Sure, no problem at all. So toilet break, otherwise known as letting go time. Renouncing the stuff in your belly and bladder.
Ajahn, you can go to toilet as well if you did.
I don't feel like it because it's warm here. And because it's warm, you do perspire a lot. So I'm quite happy just to stay here until another hour, and then I can go to the toilet.
Thank you, Ajahn.
But you can go as well, Freddie. You don't have to be there.
I've just gone to toilet already while we were talking.
Yeah. Anyway, on the internet, you can just have a little bottle underneath. No one sees it.
Oh yeah.
I probably will. I'm going to go to the toilet. So I can have a toilet break too.
Please go.
Freddie, where is Gerald?
I think he is here. Not sure.
Oh, yes. Okay. I haven't
Soon
seen him for a while.
Yeah, he definitely is watching you.
Hello, Gerald. Just having a look for who's here. See, Chi Wei from Perth is here.
The usual suspects.
The usual suspects, yeah. Where you teach us always the same people. Wow, a lot of people.
Yeah, and people on Facebook and on YouTube as well.
Yeah. Can't be anything on the TV tonight.
You are the TV, Ajahn.
Wow. It's good that we have things like COVID, because otherwise you would never learn how to do this.
Ajahn, I got some people asking me to ask you that. When do you think COVID will end?
Of course, nothing ever ends. It mutates. But I think because people have to live, you have to travel. So I think the worst of COVID will be over soon. So we'll still be flus and stuff around. A lot of people will get immunity from it. They know how to deal with it. And so most of it will disappear. We're incredibly fortunate here in Western Australia. There's hardly any COVID at all. Same as in the whole of Australia. It's very rare that we have outbreaks, which means that we're not traveling because of just maybe over precaution, maybe. But still, we're starting to think of like bubbles, like going over to Singapore, New Zealand, and I'm not quite sure how things are in Hong Kong, but there'll be bubbles, and we'll be able to go to Australia to places like Hong Kong or other places, and that's going to happen not so long. And because we really have to, we're human beings are social, and we've already been spread all over the world. We've got friends, relations in so many different countries, and so we want to go and visit each other. We take precautions. Of course, there's be some infection still, but it's only COVID. It's only life and death. One of the things which we talk about here in this monastery, that sometimes that people are so afraid of death these days, much more so than in the olden days. And so I think we're overly afraid of death. And if only more people could sort of believe in rebirth, you die. It's not the end of the world. There's more important things than life and death. I've got to be careful what I say sometimes, because what I say sometimes, like, there's more important things than life and death, said Ajahn Brahm. It gets on T-shirts. And I think, who said that? Oh, yeah, I remember said that once. But it's true. There are more important things than life and death. It's how you live life.
Definitely, Ajahn.
Yeah.
Shall we start the Q&A?
Yeah, sure. Here we go.
Let me share screen.
Here we go. First one. How do we deal with toxic family members who demand us to follow? Oh, I've got to take this off. Yes. Follow their way. If their demands are met, they may even resort to violence towards their parents. Okay, toxic family members demand us to follow their way. Well, first of all, what is their way? But toxic. I just don't like that word toxic, because toxic poisons everybody. Those family members inside them, somewhere inside their toxic exterior, they've got a beautiful heart. I've got great faith in all human beings. They remind us to follow their way. Sometimes you have to use skillful means. So you don't say no, but you don't say, because that will really upset them. You don't say yes, because that will upset you. You do things like saying, well, I'll think about it. If the demands are met, they may even result to violence towards their parents. If there's violence towards their parents, and they can call the police if that's at all possible, because violence has no place at all in our societies. So violence towards their parents, that is just a line too far. Of course, that's a pretty general question, but if they do any violence towards their parents, the parents should shut their doors to those family members, so you're not welcome anymore. And even if it's really bad violence, call police. Dear Ajahn, how do we deal with bullies, under-table dealings, undercutting one another, as these people tend to get what they want, while we keep true to our integrity and precepts, often get left behind? What should we do in this cruel world? Do we wait for their karma, then we'll have our days? But sometimes, what do you want? Sometimes bullies, under-table dealings, undercutting one another, if that's in your career, is that the sort of career you want to develop? You don't have to be the CEO. You don't have to be the chief. And sometimes the wise people are just working in the middle somewhere, because there you get paid, you get a salary, you get something, and sometimes that's all you really need. But people who want to be the boss, the only reason I'm the boss of this monastery is because I had it all well planned. I had another monk who was senior to me. He was the boss. I was number two. Number two was one of the best positions. But then that my boss fell in love and left the monastery and got married. So left me holding this monastery. But it's okay. So it's important to keep true to your integrity and precepts, because you live with yourself much more than you live with other people. Even if you're married, even if you have lots and lots of relations, remember you're the last person you see when you go to bed at night. And you're the first person you notice when you wake up in the morning. You spend so much time with yourself, and if you haven't got a good relationship to yourself, then you're in big trouble. Relationship to others is important, but not as important as your relationship to yourself. So keep your integrity and precepts. You get left behind, it's not being left behind. You didn't really want to, get forward, with those bullies and people who don't keep precepts, who have no integrity. You don't want to be with them. Let them go to where they want to go. You stay where you are. Keep your integrity and precepts. And what do you really need to be happy in life? You need to have enough money to buy things and to live. But you don't need that much to survive these days. I mean, quite honestly, just as a monk, I don't have money. I don't have a credit card. I don't have bank accounts, and I do a wonderful life. So sometimes, what do you want? How much do you really need? And sometimes you realize you don't need that much to live a very happy, good life. And so if you think about that, then you don't need to undercut others, under table dealings, to so-called get on in life. Get on where? Is that better where you already are than where you already are? Anyway, what are your thoughts on the violence and racism against ethnic minority groups, blacks, Mexicans, Asians, etc., going on currently in the United States? It is sort of unacceptable. Even like violence. I mean, why do people want to be violent? I don't mind going out on a limb saying such things. Over in the United States, when it was Wild West, there's maybe a place for guns. But, in our modern world, only the police should have guns. And because otherwise it's just so easy to use it on one another and create so much violence. So And the violence is usually used against the poorer, weaker people. So violence and racism, especially racism, I was fortunate because my parents were poor. I went to a multiracial primary school. The only reason was it was a poor area, and that's where all the immigrants were. So I had some great friends. One of my friends was Sri Lankan. Another friend was from some part of Africa. A lot of Polish friends, and who else was there? And quite honestly, if they could play football, because I was into soccer at those days when I was 9 and 10, if they could play football, they were on my team, on my side. So this great sense of friendship with lots of different people. And because we were mixed up from when we were very young. And of course, now, blacks, Mexican, Asians, I am Asian. Ajahn Brahm is Asian, Caucasian. In other words, what's the difference? I can't see the difference. Dear Ajahn, could you please elaborate on the meaning of life? Is there meaning to this at all? If there is, how do we find our purpose in life? Now that is up to you. I can't answer that question, how you find your purpose in life. But what gives your life meaning? What's the most important? Now, a good little simile is your house or apartment. Imagine you're outside that apartment and there's a fire. And you can get inside that house, you can get one thing only and bring it out, and the rest will all get burned. What would you take out of that house with you? What has really got the most value for you? If you know what has value, you know what purpose is. Those things of value. Everything else might get destroyed, but maybe you got your partner in life, they're the most important thing in the world for you. Your health may be the most important thing in the world, but not your bank books. So when you find out what has value, and then the other time you can find out value in life and purpose in life is at funeral services. Because that's what I do a lot of, going to funeral services and doing ceremonies for people. And I enjoy going to those funeral services. The reason is because you talk to people about the person who's passed away and their value in life, important to all the friends and relations who come to that service. There you find what the purpose of life is. And they don't really tell that they were the CEO of a company or they were just had so many possessions. No one ever tells me how much money they had in the bank at a funeral service. It's all just the wonderful memories they had of how they were kind and generous and loving and forgiving, and what a great friend they were. Simple things like what a good cook they were. But how many times I've heard that? Oh no, the aunt was such a really good cook. You can go around to her house and she would do up some stir fry or something that's absolutely delicious. And that's what they remember them for. And there you get great insights into the purpose and meaning of life. What you remember that person for. And it's always acts of kindness, generosity, sharing, love, peace, forgiveness. Those are important parts of life. And of course, when you go deeper, many people who are listening to this talk, they say, oh, when we went on that retreat, it was so peaceful, and so beautiful, so much happiness. Maybe in Jhana Grove Meditation Center, where many of you come, and you're just sitting there having a cup of tea or sitting next to the stupa watching the stars at night. And how beautiful that was. Didn't cost anything. Free for you. You don't have to pay tickets to get on top of that stupa. It's always there. The stars are always there. They shine in all countries. You find out that peace, that contentment is the most important thing in the world for you. Okay. Okay, from Poland. I was a member of a 10-day Vipassana retreat where I scanned my whole body over and over and over to feel sensations without reacting. Doing that, you can release all sankharas from past, and this is the way to liberation. There is no word about jhanas. What do you think about this technique, and do you teach it too? No, I don't teach it. It's incomplete. You don't just release all sankharas from the past that way. That Vipassana tradition, it's good, but it doesn't go far enough. It was, there's a couple of really good books which were written recently about noticing that was actually came from Lady Sayadaw. That was the place where this great monk, Lady Sayadaw, realized it was when the British were invading and took over Mandalay. And many monks thought that was the end of Buddhism in Burma. The British will take over, maybe just turn it into Christian or whatever. And so Lady Sayadaw decided he had to make Buddhist meditation more popular. So he actually invented the Vipassana tradition, the pure Vipassana, not with the jhanas. He knew that it was missing out an important part of Buddhist practice, but to make it more popular, so to withstand the influx of Western culture. But Buddhism is way more than just scanning the whole body over and over to feel sensations. You let those sensations disappear. And when all those five senses disappear, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, then what happens? Then you get to the mind sense, the citta. And when you really understand what's happening there, you feel it, you get to know it from time again. And you get to make it really peaceful, get these jhanas. That's actually what the Buddha said when he sat under, when he tried everything else before he was a Buddha. He thought that time when he was sitting under the rose apple tree as a young kid and experienced jhana. This is in the Mahasatthika Sutta, number 36 of the Majjhima Nikaya. For those of you who want to check it out for yourself, it's actually saying that maybe this is the way to enlightenment. And he realized, yes, it was. So he practiced that. And as a result of that, he taught the Eightfold Path. And the eighth factor of the Eightfold Path is jhanas. Samma Samadhi is always said to be the four jhanas. We can't actually go against that, the teachings of the Buddha. Anyway, why me podcast? You say the perception of injustice, is it really unjust or not? You say people work harder and that's why they have higher scores, but yeah, no, that's not true. What about those of us who are actually born into systematic racism and society doesn't give them equal opportunity, no equal footing ground? Don't have equal opportunity, but for what? What do you want out of life? And is there opportunity to get what is really most important in life? And if that's there, just go for it. Many of us are born into systematic racism and society doesn't give them equal opportunity. Yes. But little by little, there are ways of lessening that racism, lessening the barriers, the glass ceilings, as they say. But most of us have discriminative judgments of others, whether it's people of different race, people of different colors, different genders, different sexual orientation, different age, different religion. There's so much discrimination. And to think it's others are discriminating against us, we should always, each one of us, should say, am I discriminating against them? Why? And you realize that people aren't equal. There are differences, and it's wonderful that people are not equal, they're different. But where we miss out is not giving respect to the diversity of life on this planet. We're not criticizing one as being inherently better than the other. Different, yes, but not so inherently different, inherently better. And also the idea of reincarnation, rebirth. We feel that what a wonderful thing it would be, if we could remember our lives when we were born as a slave, of a darker color or a lighter color, when we were a LGBTQIAE sort of person, when we were a sick person, a healthy person, to get some idea what the other feels like. Then we could be far less critical. It's not the so-called racism or lack of equal opportunity, which is so much of the racism. Yeah, it is a problem, but it's, what am I trying to say? Is that you may not like me as a Westerner, say in Thailand. In Thailand, it was, growing up there, it was racist. You were treated differently because you were a Westerner and you weren't given the same opportunities as a Thai would be given. But I had enough opportunities. I didn't see what was lacking. I see what I had. And I just grabbed that and just had a wonderful time as a young monk. Anyway, sometimes you can't give full answers to the questions. That's why, unfortunately, it's better if we had a face-to-face retreat so you can actually talk much more. Anyway, Ajahn, Brahm, I always feel sleepy when meditate. Please help. Next time you go on a retreat, take a nice pillow and a nice blanket. You know what happens on the retreats which I teach? That when we meditate, people feel sleepy the first few days. And then when they go to bed at night, after all the talks are over, they can't go to sleep. What's going on there? Why is it when you're supposed to meditate, people fall asleep? When you go to the bed, you can't fall asleep at all. So I tell people, when you come into the meditation hall for meditation time, try to fall asleep. Then you'll be awake. But when you go to bed at night, try to keep awake, and then you'll fall asleep. It's almost like the opposite. And the underlying thing is that we try to be mindful, and that wears out our energy. We fall asleep. When you go to bed at night, we try to fall asleep, and that makes us too tense. We keep awake. So instead of trying to be somewhere you're not, learn how to be happy where you are. So if you feel sleepy when you meditate, when you start meditating, that's fine. Be happy to feel sleepy. Let it be. Don't fight it. And then you find the sleepiness starts to lessen and lessen and lessen and lessen, lessen and lessen and lessen. When it starts to disappear, you're not restless with too much thought. It's a beautiful, peaceful state. But if you fight sleepiness, you waste energy. And you continue to be sleepy. Or if you do break through, then you're restless, can't stop thinking. So try that middle way. Just let things be. How to differentiate whether we give up or we do nothing. Giving up, doing nothing. You give up doing nothing. Well, you don't do giving up. It's basically the same thing. But to make it more clear, sometimes when you tell people to let things be, let things go, do nothing, is too often they just don't understand it. They try to do nothing. They try to give up. They put too much effort into giving up. And that's not giving up at all. And they do nothing. I'm going to do nothing today. It's more better to say it's nothing doing. And, okay, this answer came up. It's a little bit sort of running ahead of this question, but it's a very good answer. There was a a cartoon which we had up in the dining room of our meditation center, Jhana Grove, for over a year. I don't know who got hold of it, but it was one of my favorite cartoons. There was a man and he had a sign and he went to see this monk. He was very angry, very upset, very irritated. And the sign read, "I want happiness." And he obviously didn't have any happiness because he was really upset. And so the next frame of the cartoon, the monk got that sign. First mistake, he said, I. So with a pen, he rubbed out the I on that little placard. So instead of "I want happiness," you just had "want happiness." And still the man was upset. So the monk with his pen then crossed out the W-A-N-T, want. And then he showed what was left to the man, happiness. And the two of them had these big smiles on their face, and that was the end of the cartoon. I want happiness. The mistake is I. The mistake is want. You take away the I, you take away the want, what's left? Happiness, natural. So give up on doing nothing. A lot of those is controlling. It's doing something rather than learning how just to let go of doing anything. You are not giving up. You are disappearing. You're not doing nothing. It's nothing is doing. Oh, you found it. Yay. Wow, somebody's put that up there. Amazing. Well done. I want happiness. Happiness. Hey, well done. Okay. Is it considered suicide if a terminally ill patient refuses to take any food? No. Refuse to take any food. A terminally ill patient, it's their decision. And sometimes in such a situation that they're terminal and they're ill and they decide not to take any food, then let the person take responsibility for their karma. And so I can't see anything which is going to be blameworthy with that. You called it suicide, and just that word sort of creates a bad connotation. Is it really suicide if, like, somebody sees a kid in the middle of the busy road, and you run in there, push the kid away from a truck, and thereby get killed yourself? Is that suicide? You did something deliberately which ended your life. You knew it was going to end your life. You did that for a good cause, to help somebody else. So sometimes suicide, intentional ending of your own life, and maybe for a good cause. Sometimes you think that is noteworthy, wonderful. This is yourself. You decide that you don't want to cost so much money for your relations. You don't want to take up a hospital bed. You don't want to, not much point to it. So a person decides to refuse to take any food and let themselves die peacefully. Anyway, how do we live with people who are being controlled by fear? I tend to isolate myself to avoid interaction because I don't want to react or live like them. Is being controlled by fear, I mean that you can see the fear inside of them and that is just what is controlling them, is you do tend to isolate yourself, but remember that you're only with them for a certain many hours every day. And sometimes if you can give them some kindness and a lack of fear when you're around them, as much as you can, but when it gets too much for you, because a lot of times you feel drained, like you're being sucked. People call those people like vampires. They're not real vampires, obviously, but they just suck energy from you. So you've only got a certain amount of energy, so just make sure that you don't get everything sucked away. Give them as much as you can, if you possibly, they're close to you, and then go back and rest. So even if you live in the same house, you don't always stay in the same room. You don't always just keep eye contact and talk with each other. A lot of time you're by yourself. So use those times of solitude to actually to regenerate your energies, and then go out there into that area of that world where that person lives, and then be of service to them as best you can. But don't try and cure them, care for them. Don't try and change them. Just make them feel not afraid in your presence. Dear Ajahn, may I hear your view on necessary evil, like killing a parasite in my body, or charities cooperating with corrupt regime in order to help civilians? This is even the word evil. The word evil is actually a Christian word. It means going against the law of God, which, for a Buddhist, this makes no sense at all. So we don't say necessary evil, because evil is more an absolute. But wrong is not so absolute. Whatever you do, there's no such thing as actually total bad karma. It's what they used to say, black and white karma. And I didn't really want to say that, black and white, because what's wrong with being black? But no, good and bad karma. There's no such thing as totally good or totally bad karma. There's always a little bit of bad, a little bit of good in it, whatever you do. That's why to act is so complex. It's not a simple thing in most things we do in life. Like killing a parasite in my body. Some of the parasites in your body are good for you. And sometimes that you kill one and, they kill the bad parasites, and you get other good parasites have to die as well in your body. So it's just a difficult situation. So it's not a necessary evil. Sometimes it's black and white karma. You want to make sure it's understand that and do mostly good karma. Charities cooperating with corrupt regimes in order to help civilians. How much you're cooperating with corrupt regimes, how much you're helping civilians, whether they want to be helped by working with a corrupt regime. So necessary evil, that just word is just avoiding the question of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Evil isn't necessary. There's no such thing as evil. There's like good and bad. It's in between. Anyway, I have been very unhappy at work for 12 years. It's like every turn I take, I hit a brick wall, mainly because I always seem to meet bosses who fail to value me. This has caused stress, sleepless nights, tears and tensions in my relationship with people, and worries my father, who I'm closest to. So I'm not quite sure what work you do, but don't ask too much from your job. There was one of he was the CEO of Singapore Airports Authority. And I did a seminar with him many years ago. And he said that he asked his people who work for him, how many of you go to work vowing to make someone happy today? But how many of you go to work hoping you get fulfillment at work? It was a very good point. We expect to be happy at work, but we don't give happiness to others working at work. So don't expect to get, but see if you can give. Give some happiness, some extra, some smiles or whatever, forgiveness to your boss. Don't expect to get things, but see if there's any opportunity you can to give. What was a good story? There was one of the friends over here in Perth. She had one of her colleagues, the same level in the company, and there was a promotion, and her friend got the promotion. They were really close together before, but once her friend was her boss, so the relationship changed, and it was very unpleasant. And she took my advice, and she tried to do something kind and good to her boss. And it was such a simple thing which changed their relationship. She knew from the past because they used to share coffee together. So she knew exactly what her boss liked to drink. So one day she never asked her boss, "Do you want a cup of coffee?" She just brought the coffee, the coffee that she knew her boss liked, and just, "Here, have a cup of coffee." And the boss was so surprised, pleasantly surprised, and had that beautiful coffee. And she remembered the relationship which they shared when they were at the same level in the company. And of course, one was the boss and one was the junior, but now the relationship totally changed. They cared for one another. Anyway, dear Ajahn, I just knew that I have a tumor which can be cancerous, to be confirmed next week. May I seek your guidance how I can face this and my young children peacefully and calm as I can be? If it's cancerous, it doesn't mean it's going to kill you. So anyway, who knows what it is? So give it the benefit of the doubt. Right now, when thinking, you'll probably think, "Oh, it's going to be cancerous. I'm sure it's going to be cancerous." No, don't think like that. Because what you're afraid of, you're more likely to make happen. You're increasing the probability of that being cancerous. So start thinking, it's probably not cancerous. It's probably just a little tumor, just a growth on something. And just keep thinking positive, and you'll find that it's more likely you're increasing the opportunities of that tumor not being cancerous. Remember, your mind is more important than your body. Your mind interferes with your body and changes your body. So don't think that that you are just a victim and it's going to be cancerous and blah, 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 blah. No, just get that mind to have a positive view of that tumor, and then let's see if it can also get very small. And if it does turn out to be cancerous, great. You learn so much from that. I do a lot of work with people with cancer over here in Perth, and it was a surprise to me for many, many years when people would come up and said, "Yeah, it was unpleasant, it was scary, but the best thing which ever happened to me." And they learned so much from that. So even if the worst case scenario is a lovely opportunity to learn, it probably won't be that bad. Okay, next question. Why our body disappears into dark voidness in meditation? How do I handle fear arising from it? I stopped my meditation when this happened once to me, and thereafter I fear deep meditation. How you overcome that is learn how to not be afraid of the happiness and the joy in early stages of meditation. If you joined in the guided meditation, which I did today, you'd have heard me say that even when the body starts to relax, it feels so wonderful, so joyful. And then you take that perception of joy and happiness, which is supposed to be there in the meditation. When the Buddha did the breath meditation, breathing in and out, experiencing joy and bliss, that's what the Buddha suggested you to do. So when the body disappears, at that time you should already have like a very peaceful body and a very joyful mind. And if that joy is there, you don't feel afraid. No fear at all, because you're enjoying yourself. You notice that's one of the great antidotes to fear, even giving public talks. It's one of the reasons why I learned how to tell jokes. Because when you tell jokes, you can't be afraid. You're laughing. And other people laugh with you. And that takes away all the fear of public speaking. Many people who want to do public speaking and they're just a bit afraid, find a joke, a funny story. It can be relevant or maybe not relevant at all. Start off with that and you laugh at it. Forget about other people laughing, you laugh. And then you find that relaxes you. So anyway, that's actually one of the ways we don't have fear arising from meditation. So it's a crazy thing to stop meditation because it happened once to you. Because you get into deep meditation, just if you have the joy and happiness, it's not void. It's actually filled with great awareness, powerful joy. And afterwards, when you come out of meditation, you're walking on air, nothing upsets you, having a great time, really sort of very productive. This is the way you can work, you get a big boost of energy. So I think that I'm not quite sure what meditation you're doing or who taught you, but there is a little bit of a problem there that not doing the meditation properly. Dark voidness. Sometimes the darkness is so gorgeous. Beautiful blackness. Everything is still and peaceful. Appreciate it. And once the joy starts coming up, well, it really takes off. You have the time of your life. Anyway, Ajahn, how should we deal with negative emotions, i.e. being anxious? Logically, we know there is no need to worry since it causes more harm than good, but it's under assumption as if we can control our mind. Often the case, the more we want to become, the more anxious we often become. First of all, when you look in the future where anxiety lives, why is it when we look in the future, we always think about all the things which might go wrong? There's that negativity. And so instead of looking at all the things which might go wrong, how about looking at all the things which might go right? Which is a positive mind. Either unlikely, we don't know it's going to be good or bad, but why don't we think about what would happen if it went right? And of course, there's so many stories about that. One of my favorite stories is of Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh, when he was walking through the forest with his friend Piglet, and Winnie the Pooh and Piglet were walking, still had a long way to get home, and the storm was coming up, and the wind was getting stronger and stronger. The trees were swaying more and more, leaves were falling off, then twigs and big gusts of wind, branches would fall off, and then whole trees would come crashing down onto the ground. It was a major storm. And little Piglet got anxious and said to his friend Winnie the Pooh, I can't go any further. What would happen if a tree fell when we were underneath it? Very simple idea of anxiety. And there's a possibility. It's a very heavy storm. Winnie the Pooh, his great wisdom, he said, yes, that's possible. But what would happen if a tree didn't fall when we were underneath it? Which was far more likely. And that little positive view just was enough to take away the anxiety, and both of them walked safely home. Okay, it's only in a little booklet, which I read in Winnie the Pooh. But nevertheless, I always remembered that story as such a wise way of overcoming anxiety. And so that lady with the tumor, what would happen if it's cancerous? The answer is, what would happen if it wasn't? It's often more likely. That's how we get rid of anxiety. We're just changing our attitude, the way we look at life. So negative emotions don't really help. Anyway, I think you all know, I'm sure there must be many of you in Hong Kong, the best blood group to have. The best blood group to have, especially during COVID times or times of economic uncertainty, the best blood group to have is B positive. B plus, B positive. Ha 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 ha. Dear Ajahn, please kindly advise how to prepare our heart and mind to deal with very distressing oppression by military regime in Burma since the coup 1st of February and almost 200 protesters have been killed. Yeah, 200 protesters have been killed. And since the 1st of February, that's 6 weeks. And how many people I remember dying just in one night in London during the Second World War? Sometimes when they say 200 protesters have been killed, that's not good. But please keep it in perspective that it's more important things than life and death. And if, quite frankly, you look at those protesters who have been killed, Don't call them protesters, even call them things like martyrs. People who did great sacrifices. People who, put their lives in danger for the sake of freedom in their country. For a good cause. Mahatma Gandhi used to say, I can see 1,000 reasons to give my life for a good cause. I can't see any reason to take the life of another. Always remember that wonderful saying. So in other words, we can put our life on the line for a good cause. We shouldn't be sad about that somebody got killed for a good cause. Sometimes our attachment to one another, wanting everyone to be safe and happy, life in many situations is dangerous. Wonderful that people have been putting their life on the line. They have been killed, they've died, but hopefully they'll carry on until eventually the military are human beings as well. Until after a while that the military just feel so sick of what they're doing. They stop. Ajahn Brahm, my dear father just passed away last month. I still feel grief and really miss him. So much as I couldn't go back to my hometown when he passed away during COVID and travel restrictions. What should I do? I know that death is inevitable. It still hurts that he is gone. I don't know how old your father was or how long you knew him, but don't just think of the ending of his life. What about all those years you knew him? All the wonderful experiences you had together. So why are you spoiling your memory of him just by death? The fact he's not there anymore. You had him for so many years. And that's what I knew when my own father died. 16 years he died. When I was 16, sorry. My father died when I was a 16-year-old. I never felt sad at all when he died. And I loved him immensely. I never felt sad because I looked upon as the end of a great concert. When I went to great musical performances, I never cried after the performance was over. I never sort of felt sad. I felt privileged to have known my father for all those years. Only 16, but that meant so much to me. Thank you so much. So that's why I never cried at his funeral, never cried since. I never cried at my mother's death or anything, even though that I was stuck in Australia when she died in London. All the time, you remember it's like a great performance. And I always count the days, the months, the years I knew him. And all those memories stay in your heart forever. Good memories of kindness and service and sacrifice. Great performance, Dad. Same as your father. He passed away last month. You really miss him, but you had him. Of course, you can't have and love someone without them eventually disappearing, which is one of the reasons why I say the greatest act of love is to let someone go. With gratitude, thank you for being with me for such a long time. How can I feel grief? I feel gratitude. Yeah, I would love if you were here, but you cannot be here forever. When you disappear from my life, it means that other people can be loved by me. You can't go back to your hometown, but that's not a big problem. So often, if you are peaceful, sometimes in your dreams, your father can come and say hello. But if you're really grief-stricken and very tense, not relaxed, he probably has been trying to contact you, but you're not available. You're too busy with grief. Ajahn Brahm, meditation is too difficult. I feel like giving up. Exactly. Give up. If you give up, meditation is the easiest thing in the world. Meditation cannot be too difficult at all. What is meditation? It's being at peace. Making peace, being kind, being gentle. You've heard me say that so many times. I'm not just making this up for this particular questioner. So when you sit down to meditate, or you lay down to meditate, can you make peace with this moment? Instead of fighting it, wanting to be something different, make peace with it, understand it, get to know this moment. Be kind to it. Don't try and cure it, care for it. Just like you care for a cat or a dog or a little grandchild or something. You care for it and be so gentle and patient. The reason why it's difficult for you is because you're trying to do something. But there's great ideas of what you want to do or what you want to get rid of. The meditation is not that at all. Meditation is learning how to be here, to be more here. And see this amazing thing that when you stop doing things and stop trying to get rid of things, you're caring for things rather than curing them. Caring for this moment, learning from it, being with it. It's the easiest thing in the world to do nothing. And after a while, the energies start to grow, and all the things you strived for and didn't get, they happen when you stop. There's that simile which I've given many times before. I think it's apt here. It's of the donkey and the carrot. A donkey is stubborn. The master or mistress beats it and still it won't move. But they don't hit donkeys with sticks. You tie the stick to the donkey's neck. So the front of the stick is about 2 foot in front of the donkey's nose. On the end of a stick, you tie a string, and the end of a string, you put a carrot. So the donkey sees the carrot 2 foot in front of it, so walks after it. And the donkey's been walking, running, chasing that carrot for such a long time. And it's too difficult to catch the carrot. It's always 2 foot in front, maybe 1.5 foot, maybe 2'6", but you can never get it. You can see it, smell it, but just... And so the donkey feels like giving up. But you can't give up on life. Even if you die, you get reborn again. But what the donkey realizes, it doesn't give up. The donkey learns what meditation really is. The donkey stops chasing things, stops wanting things. Instead just stands in this moment. See what happens next. What happens next when the donkey stops running after the carrot swings away from the donkey. The carrot goes so far away from the donkey, 4 foot in front of the donkey's face. But the donkey is patient. And the donkey starts to notice something. Now the carrot starts swinging towards the donkey's mouth. And that carrot comes to a place 2 foot in front of its mouth, the usual position where the carrot is. But now the carrot is coming at a very fast speed towards the donkey's mouth. And soon that carrot swings right close to the donkey's mouth. And the last thing the donkey always has to remember is to say to that carrot, "Carrot, the door of my mouth is open to you." Opens its mouth and the carrot comes in. That's how you catch carrots if you're a donkey. Chasing the carrot, you will never catch it. Stopping, and the carrot comes towards you. That's what meditation is. Anyway, next question. Meditation, some Ajahn suggests to not control anything. Yay, just let go of everything. Yeah. And others recommend making the breath pleasurable and playing with the breathing energies. Yeah. Through the whole body to comfort or heal the body, and so raise pity and sukha. E.g. Ajahn, what is the right approach? They're both the right approach. What is the right food to eat? So water, rice, potatoes, they're all okay. In other words, these are just different strategies, and they're pretty similar. What you say there is, I agree with all of that. So you don't control anything, but you can play with the breathing energy. It's so different playing than controlling. Controlling is demanding that you get something. Playing with breathing energies is just almost like investigating, exploring, finding out what works. That's why that sometimes playtime for kids in schools is one of the greatest times they can learn. And playing in organizations, companies, especially doing R&D and innovation stuff, you get some equipment, you play around with it, and then suddenly you discover some amazing things. So I agree with both of those. Okay, next question. Do you support the movement of using voice to challenge status quo for rape victims? Or do you think people should be forgiving to those offenders? Be forgiving is a wonderful thing, because what that means is that you are not going to suffer for what they did to you. But it's still good to speak up, and to say that that's an unacceptable way of behavior. So both are correct. Use your voice if you can. There's something you can do it. And challenge the status quo. The status quo of, I don't know, there's always lots of kindness in this world, but sometimes people are stupid. Sometimes there was a couple of cases in Australia recently, rape victims, and what I heard there was that people were drunk, drugs. Because when people are drunk, or even a little bit drunk or a little bit high on drugs, of course, there's no sort of heliotrope, this sense of what is right and what is wrong. So it's great to talk up about that, especially if people are taking alcohol or drugs. You wouldn't allow them to drive a car. Why should you allow them to sort of, to drive relationships? There's many crashes. So forgiving to those offenders, yeah, you don't want to sort of so many victims there, but you can't let it continue on like that. There has to be some way of finding out what the problems are and solving those problems. It's unacceptable. Consent should be consent, and it's happening that way. It was interesting to see that in schools in Australia, they're teaching the kids, even like in primary school, about what consent means. And consent means it has to be very clearly understood that two people are making a free choice. And that really means a free choice, not because that person is your teacher or that person is your boss. It has to be total free choice. So then people know they're consenting together. Anyway, dear boss monk, I represent my community to ask the topmost asked question. During this pandemic, all economies falling apart. Even if it's really hard, we still try to make good karma, but our own condition still gets worse. Is it because our past karma? Please, guide, thank you for your teaching. Again, you can't do as much for others or for your family as you used to do before. All economies falling apart. It doesn't totally fall apart. In Western Australia, believe it or not, the economy is pretty good. In fact, they say it's in a boom time, believe it or not. So the West Australian economy is just going very, very well. And even throughout the whole of Australia, we're back to the employment we had just pre-pandemic. So, there's plenty of jobs and plenty of hope around. There's no travel overseas possible, but there's still a very good economy. Depends where you are in this world. It's really hard. We still try to make good karma, but our conditions still get worse. They get worse and then they get better again. That's the nature of our life. It can't always continue to get worse. So be careful, still work hard. People still need things like food. They still need talks over the internet. There's so much stuff which you can still do. So, is it because of your past karma? Nah. Past karma is something, it's a present karma. What you're doing with what you've got could be adjusted. Anyway, please help me understand, if there is no self, who does our consciousness belong to? Who is controlling our actions in this sense? It is your actions are being not controlled, but conditioned. They're conditioned by what you see, especially what you read, what you see on the TV, what you see on the internet, like listening to my talks. I'm conditioning you. Okay, to make it sound coarse, I'm brainwashing you in a very good sense. And that's why you do what you do. Your consciousness doesn't belong to anybody. It actually belongs to nature, if you like. It's this process. And because, first of all, you're controlling your doing, we assume it sounds like, it feels like that you are the one who chose to ask that question. Did you? It may appear that way, but sometimes when you see just how powerful conditioning is, advertising, your society, the things you read and things you talk about, that influences you a lot. What is it in advertising? For every dollar you spend on an advertising campaign, in general, you usually get $3 profit back. It's powerful the way we influence people. With advertising, the trick is to make people feel that they're not being influenced at all. So it goes under their defenses. So you always feel that you're being controlled. So you always feel that you're in control. And it's actually quite challenging. And the deepest way to realize that you are being controlled in the sense of condition, not by one bad person, but by our society, by the people you meet with, what you read, what you see online. And that's the doer, the knower, the consciousness. That is a harder thing to see. But in meditation, you realize that this consciousness doesn't belong to any being. It's this process, which when we don't understand it carefully enough, because we haven't really isolated this mind consciousness away from the five senses. So we haven't really studied it and understood it. What is the knower? What is the mind? And of course, that's the purpose of the jhanas. In the jhanas, you just got pure mind, the other five senses are gone. So it's like studying chemistry lab, pure gold. That's a Buddhist simile. You understand pure gold, you have experience of it, not just ideas and conjectures, but real experience. You know what this pure gold is. It's just this process, cause and effect, which is allowed to cease. You don't cease. You weren't there to begin with. It's an empty process, which is one of the deepest questions. And I think it's a good time to stop because it's 9 o'clock. Is that okay? Whereas Freddie gone.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, I thought you'd ceased as well. You've been enlightened.
No, I hope. Thanks, Ajahn. Sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So that's it for today. Just to remind everyone, there will be sections tomorrow and on Sunday at the same time. And the Q&A form is still open. So Ajahn, you still have a lot of work to do. And the link is the same. So feel free to ask on the form.
No, I do apologize if I don't answer all the questions because there's more questions than you could ever answer. And I try my very best. And if you don't like the answer, please ask another question. I try the best. If you don't finish them all in 3 days, remember that I'm not dying. I'm not going anywhere for a long time yet. So we can always ask those questions at another time, another place. In the meantime, have a very peaceful, happy night. For those of you in this time zone, or a very wonderful morning and good day for those of you in places like Europe or United States.
And you too.
Bye.
So see you again